186 AD, 4080 AM. Famous church historian Origen was born in this year. 188 AD, 4082 AM. A comet appeared as recorded by the Chinese. 1. Introduction to comets. 192 AD, 4086 AM. Tertullian wrote that, quote, "Regions of Britain which have never been penetrated by the Roman arms have received the religion of Christ," unquote. There are historians that assert that Druidism dissolved by the natural action of its own principles into Christianity. 1. St. Paul in Britain. 200 AD, 4094 AM. Julius Africanus, died 245 AD, was the originator of the erroneous theory that the sons of God in Genesis 6, rebel Anunnaki Nephilim, and the giants, Anunnaki hybrid offspring, merely described a union between the daughters of Seth and Cainite males before the flood, and was not really referring to the appearance on earth of divine beings that descended from the heavens that were so popular in all the pagan histories. Despite the immense corpus of written and oral traditions of these visitors to early humanity and their gigantic offspring, the Church was attempting through its historians and bishops to distance itself from all pagan history. This was a time of heavy Christian filtering of knowledge. 203 AD, 4097 AM. At Roman Carthage in North Africa, the Christians were undergoing persecution. A woman named Perpetua was with her infant daughter and servant girl when they were taken and offered a chance to recant her faith or die. She refused to recant despite protests from local leaders and her father. She was herded in the Colosseum at Carthage with the other Christians, and she with her servant Felicity were hacked to death by a gladiator before a cheering crowd of Romans. The incident and fame of Perpetua spread throughout Christendom because while in prison awaiting her death, she wrote a diary that was afterwards published. 204 AD, 4098 AM. Plotinus born, died 270 AD, a venerated Christian mystic, philosopher and writer. 207 AD, 4101 AM. The War of the Three Kingdoms began in China and lasted 58 years to 265 AD. Zhuge Liang, known as Sleeping Dragon, led the armies of the Shu Kingdom. His enemy approached with 150,000 troops, catching Zhuge alone with only a small force in a town, so he ordered his own men to throw down their flags, open the city gates and hide in the town as he stood alone on the city wall. He wore a Taoist robe, playing a lute and chanting, watching the approach of his arch-enemy Sima Yi, who stared back suspiciously. Seeing his nemesis on the wall alone with the gates wide open and nobody else around, Sima Yi panicked, sure that this was a clever ambush, ordering his army to retreat. In this way Sleeping Dragon escaped. This is a period of great confusion in China. 1. The 48 Laws of Power. 208 AD, 4102 AM. This is a year prominent in the calendrics of Rome, of the descendants of Israel and of China. This year was 1332 years, 666 plus 666, after the dynastic change that occurred in 1123 BC, when 250,000 Chinese took to ships and sailed to the ancient Americas. It was also 414 years after 207 BC, when Chinese Emperor Huangdi died and China erupted into warring states. 210 AD, 4104 AM. This is a year that cannot be ignored in Chronicon. The calendrics are too strong. These are most significant timelines. Perhaps a more in-depth analysis of history can yield forth the events that occurred in this year. 221 AD, 4115 AM. Julius Africanus finished his Chronographia, a 5-volume history of the world from the supposed creation to 221 AD. 228 AD, 4122 AM. This year, 228 AD, is the earliest date found on any Mayan site inscription written in the familiar Mayan bar and dot numerical system they inherited from the Olmecs. The Maya inherited their culture, sciences and calendar from the older Olmec of the Yucatan, and this is exactly 600 times 6 years after the start of the Olmec calendar in 3373 BC, and 666 times 5 years after the start of the Vedic calendar in 3103 BC. 1. Fingerprints of the Gods. 235 AD, 4129 AM. Maximin becomes Emperor of Rome, a man of Germania, of Scythian Goth descent. He stood 8 feet tall, was of enormous strength and very cruel. He reigned until 238. 240 AD, 4134 AM. Mani the Persian wrote the Book of Giants, a text not to be confused with the Dead Sea Scrolls text, also called Book of Giants, discovered in 1947 AD from the Qumran site. Mani was a reformer who believed that Christianity had become corrupted by the influence of Judaism. To him, Christianity was more akin to the Persian Zoroastrianism than to Judaism. He preached at a time after the Persians had liberated themselves from Parthian rule. But it was under the Parthians that Christianity had been allowed to flourish unobstructed. He founded Manichaeism. His death is variously dated between 274 and 277 AD. 1. Fallen angels. 2. The history of the Christian religion and the Church during the first 3 centuries.